Shana Tova. Hi, I'm Phyllis Rosenberg, and I have the honor of moderating the Layperson's Hour at the Reformed Temple of Forest Hills, and I'd like to introduce our panelists. First, we have Fred Pagan. Fred is a member of our executive team as treasurer and is the father of the president of TAFI, which is a bigger honor than being treasurer. Linda Freitag was one of our founders of our Rosh Chodesh, which merged with Sisterhood to form our dynamic women's connection, and she's a very active member there. Next to me, I have Nicole Feder, who is an attorney and raising two sons, one who became bar mitzvah just pre-COVID, and both boys are active in our religious school. And last, I have Danny Alexander, is recently a retired teacher, and he graces us with his beautiful Torah chanting several times a year. He also has two sons who are active in our religious school. So today's topic is our Jewish journey, and this particular journey starts with the families we are born into. We know that there are several different ways to observe our faith, from ultra-Orthodox, modern Orthodox, conservative, Reform, to cultural, and that's how I identified my Jewish upbringing. So let's start with a brief description of where your Jewish journey began. How would you describe your early introduction to religion? We're going to start with Fred.
Okay. My introduction to religion was actually through the Roman Catholic faith, because I was born into not the interfaith family that you would think. My mother was Pentecostal and my father was Roman Catholic, and I grew up on the Lower East Side, so I was always immersed in that, wonderful melting pot with the Jewish culture around. But I grew up Roman Catholic, went to parochial school, and it wasn't until I would say high school and into college that I had a really much better understanding and introduction into the Jewish faith, and that's when I had begun going to seders and things like that. The things we do for love. So my girlfriend was Jewish, so that was my introduction.
Thank you. And Linda, same question.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I am the ringer in this group. I grew up in what is known now as Classic Reform. I started in Temple Israel as a nursery schooler and moved right along to Larchmont Temple, where this was back in the older days where not all girls were bat mitzvahed. I was not bat mitzvahed during that time. But it was very much what you would think of in the classic Reform tradition. For example, my father actually wasn't bar mitzvahed. He was confirmed, but not bar mitzvahed. And I have original memories of the rabbis not wearing talit. It was a sort of a different way. So I grew up in Larchmont Temple, which was Reform, and I was on the cantor side of the group because I was in junior choir, and I ended up being president of our youth group, and which was LARFD, not quite TAFI, but LARFD, and really just took it all in during the years that I was growing up. It wasn't until I was in college, however, where there weren't quite as many Jews, that I decided to study it a bit, and I took an American Judaism course and learned that actually I was the product of a mixed marriage, because my mother's side of the family was conservative and my father's Reform. And then I sort of understood the mixture and the difference in ways of looking at different holidays, and it was very interesting. So over the years, however, the Reform movement switched away from that classic approach, and I've moved on with it quite happily.
And Nicole, your early religious introduction?
I actually grew up conservative. However, my family was mostly culturally religious. We just observed the holidays, but I was bat mitzvahed at the Oakland Garden Jewish Center. And after my bat mitzvah, I would say I pretty much fell off the map of Judaism for several years until I was in high school. And then I went to Israel through USY, which was United Synagogue Youth, and that was 6 weeks of an amazing experience. My senior year in high school, I did become very involved in USY, and then when I went to college in Michigan, I became very involved in Hillel. And it was, I guess, at that point in time when I became more active and more observant in terms of the holidays, as opposed to more of just culturally.
I understand cultural. And Danny?
Well, my Jewish education, my Judaism began for me, I guess, when I was 8 days old and I was circumcised. Throughout my whole life, Judaism has been a very important part. My parents were very involved in Jewish organizations. My mother was a president in her regional Hadassah. My father led the services in our synagogue. I went to yeshiva, and we went to a conservative synagogue, but I did go to an Orthodox yeshiva. I went to summer camps, Jewish summer camps. I went to Israel with Zionist organizations. So it's been a part of me my whole life. I never really identified with any denomination. I just very eclectic, and I frankly have picked and chosen, the rituals I observe. But it's been very important to me and my wife Julie, who actually grew up in the same synagogue as me, but she was 10 years younger. So when I was one of the leaders of the youth group, she was a little kid. And then we met 25 years later, okay? And then after we got married, when we were living here in Forest Hills, we would go to her family's Orthodox synagogue. They gravitated to an Orthodox synagogue. So we would go there until we actually ended up here.
Thank you. Okay, so how did your journey bring you to the Reform movement of Judaism? Fred?
Well, coming from two families from different faiths, the Reform movement really was the most welcoming, and that's really how we came about, because when it came time, we made the decision that our children would be raised Jewish, and we would have a Jewish household. So that's how we came about.
Well, and Linda, of course, you started out with Reform, but how did the movement sort of change in your eyes?
Sure. One of the things that was very, very exciting to watch as I was growing up was the more and more, integral involvement of women. Okay? Because when I was a little girl, it was men, and then, the congregants. Over the years, I remember the first time I had a woman rabbi, I think I was in graduate school, and there was a woman rabbi, and it was really very exciting that could be. And so actually, the first synagogue I joined as an adult was a teeny little synagogue up in Washington Heights, which no longer exists, Beth Am, the People's Temple, which Rabbi Margaret Morse-Wenig was part-time rabbi of. And she was just, very exciting way to get started in that way, and very progressive. And it was really very exciting. So, and welcoming of everybody. It was really very exciting. And so that's, how I got to watch it move forward.
Can you speak up a little, please?
Oh, sure, sorry.
Okay. And Nicole, so how did your journey bring you to the Reform movement of Judaism?
My journey here, I guess, started 4.5 years ago. My oldest child was, we were attending the Forest Hills Jewish Center at the time. We were relatively active members there. My older one was in Hebrew school. My older one had gone to nursery school there. My younger one eventually went to nursery school there. And it became about the time when bar and bat mitzvah dates were being handed out. And I should note that I'm married to someone who is Catholic. And my husband's family is very Catholic, very involved in the church. And so when they talked about bar and bat mitzvah dates and things of that nature, I had a meeting with the rabbi, and I asked him point blank, what are my in-laws, how would their participation in my child's ceremony, what would that look like? And suffice it to say, I was not happy with the answer. I was told that they really would not be able to participate, and that just did not sit well with me. So we met with my husband and I met with the rabbi here. This was, I guess, the spring of 2018, and he was wonderful. And we knew that we would make the switch over to here, and we did, and the rest, as they say, is history, and we've been very, very happy here.
Danny, so what brought you here to how did your journey to the Reform movement?
Well, we moved to Forest Hills 14 years ago, right before Jacob was born. And for the first few years, we were not members of any synagogue or any organization here. When it came time for holidays or certain Shabbats, we would go to Julie's family's home in Long Beach and worship at the Lido Orthodox Synagogue. When our kids got older, it was time for Jewish education. We actually started in the Chabad Hebrew School at Rego Park, and it was wonderful. It was very welcoming. They got a wonderful education. But we knew we needed a congregation. We needed a community of like-minded people. And we still didn't know where we would end up. But we actually Julie knew Gina, because Henry and Jacob, when they were first born, Gina and Julie would just push them down 108th Street. They were involved in Mommy and me together. And we were very involved in the Y as well, at my family. And we would see the Greenbergs at the Y. And our kids knew Josh and Matthew pretty well. And I just remember on the Forest Hill soccer field one time when our kids were playing, I went over to Barry and I said, "Where do you belong?" Because I just wanted my kids to have friends like them. Chabad was wonderful, but they were cliquish and very Bukharian, and I just wanted to know, where do the American kids go? And so the Greenberg said, we go to the Reform Temple. And so we tried a few different synagogues, and we're here. And that was in 1995. 2015, sorry.
Well, it seems like we've been here since, that happens a lot with family, kids, and getting together with friends. So my next question is, was there anything about our liturgy or service at the Reformed Temple of Forest Hills that you found so different from your past congregations, and did you find some similarities? So yours is very different.
Mine is different, but I can say from the services as a child, when I was going through, I always enjoyed the music, but there was only a little bit of it. Here at the services, music is so integral. There's a cantor, Back then there was just the priest, and having so much music in the service is really a wonderful thing. It brings me back to when I was the little kid up in the rafters singing in the choir, and now I've done the 360, and I've come back to the choir again. So and that's really a wonderful thing here, to be able to be involved in all of the aspects. So that's really what I love the most is the increase in singing, the prayers.
One thing I forgot to mention is I'm an Eisner Camp alum, 2 years at Eisner, and I am a Jeff Klepper, Danny Friedlander alum, so also the music, really critical. A lot of the music that we're doing came from my time, in the Wefty choir. I was in the Wefty choir for a couple of years, and also those gentlemen now who, have careers, who've written some of the music that we're doing. And it's really exciting just to hear some of that and be part of that over the years and see it all develop over the years. So I just really love that. And it's something I know that the kids who go to, Camp Eisner in the summer are really experiencing it. It's a lovely, lovely experience every Shabbat to go and you're singing and you're dancing and you do that week after week and you really just take that in. So it's really exciting.
Thank you. And coming from on this side, the conservative movement, how is our liturgy or very different from, or things that we do in this congregation different from?
Well, for me, the music was the biggest change. The fact that there was, instruments that were playing was something that took me a very long time to sort of wrap my head around. And now I love it. And in fact, I actually saw Bonnie downstairs, and I told her she was amazing. And the way they have to cover everything up right now is just crazy, but neither here nor there. But the music was the biggest change for me, I think. Just having come from a conservative background, the tunes were different. There was, a male cantor. I went to a conservative camp as well where we observed Shabbat, and the tunes that we would sing with no musical accompaniment were the same as what I was used to from growing up and the same as what we did at the Forest Hills Jewish Center. And then coming here, the tunes were very different. And then what I thought was very funny is when we got our new lovely and wonderful cantor, she changed some of the tunes too. So I had started shortly before our new cantor, and so I learned some of the new tunes, and then the cantor came and she changed some of the tunes, and I felt like I just learned these tunes. But the music by far was the hardest, I think, for me to wrap my head around, but now I enjoy it immensely. So.
Thank you. Danny?
I would agree with Nicole, basically. It was very different than what I was used to. Not only as a conservative, I agree completely with Nicole, but I also spent many Shabbats and holidays in Orthodox synagogues, and this temple was nothing like, obviously, an Orthodox synagogue. And there are times when I still, I'm not going to say uncomfortable, but it's still very different than I'm used to, even though I've been here now for 6 years. There was still the liturgy, which I yearned for, a more traditional liturgy, more Hebrew, more Chazanish, Yiddishkeit in the services. So it's very different. Obviously, we enjoy it. We're here. My wife is now a member of the choir as well. Julie's involved in that. But it was very different, and it still is different to me, given that I've spent over 50 years in more traditional synagogues.
Thank you. But obviously, you have all made our community an integral part of your Jewish journey. Would you like to share how this happened?
Well, as I said before, it was really about my house. And my house, I don't mean just my family of four, but the entire house, the community. And we made the decision to join the temple. Our sons were getting their studies to become bar mitzvah. And the funny thing is, my younger son, David, he got into Torah study. And then it was like, well, you're going to come into, we started going to Torah study. And on some Saturdays, I might have been out later that Friday, and for whatever reason, he would wake us up and say, come on, are we going? And we would go. And it just kept going more and more. We got more involved. It was really wonderful to just have all of the avenues at Temple, not just in services, but in Temple life, to become involved, volunteer, serving food for 300 people. I got into the kitchen. I was like, I can do this, and got in there and had a lot of fun. And then, good old Diane, you know how to deal with numbers? And, I got involved with being the temple treasurer. And then the cantor approached me one day and said, can I sing? And I confessed, and I said, yes, I used to. But I'm really having a lot of fun with that. And that's really it. It's about the community getting more involved than just, we could stay at home and stare at our four walls and just be content with our nuclear family, or you can, be brave. I'm studying right now my Devar Torah, Lech Lecha, go forth. You can get out there, get into the community, and become more involved. And the Reformed Temple here really has all of those avenues, and you can be as involved as you want to be. And it's a really wonderful experience.
Thank you. Linda?
Well, when I moved to Queens, we did a bit of shul shopping, and we were very interested in something that I would get to be as involved as my husband was able to be. That was very important, that it was a synagogue that was going to just be accepting of everybody, and that women were going to be taken, quite frankly, as seriously as men. And so that mattered. And so we shopped around, and I have to say, we went over to Temple Isaiah at the time, and the current president, Joy Gorman, and the current rabbi, our Rabbi Emeritus, Rabbi Perlmutter, sort of yanked us in, which was great. They were just wonderful. And we were in the young couples group, and I was co-chair of the membership committee, and I ended up being co-chair of the PA, the Parents Association, and on and on. I ended up on the board, and I was funny when I was on the board because I was pregnant. So people laughed about how I had 1.5 votes on the board. Actually, that was after we had merged. That was right after we came here, was when I got pregnant with Julia. And all along, like my daughter started pre-kindergarten, right, with Carol Parness. I mean, all along there have been just community, community, community. That's the word that just bounces out, bounces out, bounces out. There's so much of that, and it's so wonderful in different ways you could do things. I've been co-chair of the Religious Practices Committee. Monty's currently chair of it. I mean, just different things that we get to do all along the way. And it's been really just a wonderful, sort of adventure. And there's just different ways to participate and different ways to just, immerse yourself. I'm sorry, I did do an adult bat mitzvah here.
Right.
Actually, when I was pregnant with Julia, so that's going back 25 years. So it's really very exciting. So I don't know. Everybody should just do lots and lots of it. That's my push.
Thank you. Thank you. And Nicole, you're a fairly newer member of our synagogue, so how is this becoming an integral part of your Jewish journey?
Well, in the last 4 years, we've been, so happy to be here. One of the things which my husband was very happy about was coming to a place where he could actually understand the prayers, being Catholic and doesn't read Hebrew. So for him, he felt very welcome here. We would come every Shabbat Rishon. My kids loved it. They were always happy to see their friends. We were always happy to be here. And to be honest with you, when we were looking to switch from the Jewish Center to a more inclusive temple, I honestly didn't look any further than here. We had so many friends that were here already. My kids knew people that were here. They had lots of friends here. I had lots of friends that were here. So it didn't really, there was no shopping involved. It was sort of, we met with the rabbi, and after we had that meeting, we knew that this was the right place. This was a good fit, and we would be very happy here, and we have been. And notwithstanding the last 18 months, looking forward to hopefully being able to be back in here in person at some point.
We're all looking forward to
God knows when
that.
that might be, but
Danny,
It seems so long ago because I used to sit near you, on a Shabbat, and it's hard to believe it was 18 months ago. It seems like, a week ago. But anyway, I still remember very vividly the first time Julie and I came to Temple. It was late June 2015, the last Shabbat in June. I remember that because that week the Supreme Court made some very important decisions, marriage equality, immigration, and the Affordable Care Act. And like I said, we came to this synagogue where it was very little Hebrew, a piano, liturgy that we were not that familiar with, and frankly seemed very abridged to us. And then the rabbi spoke about these decisions. And Julie looked at me and went, whoa, like, this is not the type of sermon she's used to. In a typical Orthodox synagogue, the rabbi's talking about like how much matzah you have to eat, it has to be on the plate in order to honor the mitzvah of eating matzah. How much do you have to hear the truas and all that stuff? And here was a very different sermon. And so Julie and I, after that, we did go to another synagogue as well. And I went to Julie and I said, so we have to make a decision. What do you think? Where do you want to go? Where do you feel most comfortable? And she just looked at me and surprised, I think we were kind of both surprised in some ways. And she said, Reformed Temple. So and the reason is because we wanted a temple that was inclusive. We wanted to be in a temple where everybody would feel welcome. And my mother used to joke about she wouldn't go to an Orthodox temple because they don't want her. And maybe whether she's right or not, that was her opinion. But anyway, we wanted to go to a temple where everybody would feel welcome, regardless of how you observed. And we found that here, of course. And I also like the fact that, you have all these wonderful committees, that touch upon really the essence of Judaism, which is not, we keep kosher, but which is not like, it's not concerned with what you eat or what you don't eat, but, your worldview, the tikkun olam, things like that. And that's why we've been involved ever since.
Thank you so much. We have a very small audience in front of us, but we have people at home. Does anybody have any questions or comments for our panelists today? I didn't think so. Well, I would like to thank all of our panelists for sharing their Jewish journey. And personally, I'm very grateful that their journey led them to the Reformed Temple of Forest Hills. And I hope you have an easy fast, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon. And we'll see you at 3 o'clock. Shana Tova.